G.I. Joe and Transformers, and I didn't plan it like that. But, and by the way, I've finished my book, I Killed Optimus Prime. If you know Transformers, you know Optimus Prime is the head of the Autobots. Because for the 30 years since I wrote the movie, The Transformers, the movie, people have been stopping me and say, "You fucker, you killed Optimus Prime. I was a little kid and I cried my eyes out. My mommy wouldn't let me see it." Or, "Why did you kill him? You're a prick, you killed him." And it's Hasbro insisted. They wanted to create a new character with a new home base, with new tools and weapons, and I didn't want to do it, and I told them.
To call Hasbro.
Yeah,
it's not your fault.
I told them, "You're going to have to revive him."
How did it come about that you started writing for G.I. Joe?
Well, I had written some animation before. At the request of the head of Hearst, I wrote a Betty Boop primetime animated special, which I loved doing. And they said they wanted a Depression musical. So I wrote a Depression musical because nobody knew who Betty Boop was. She made a number of cartoons, but the only character-driven parts she did were in porn. Betty Boop was an animated porn star of the 20s and 30s. And I've seen some of those films, never to be forgotten. Really, tremendous performances, real characterizations. But anyway, that's when I met Lee Mendelson and the great Bill Melendez, a great, great animator. And we hit it off immediately when I pitched the show. I said, "Betty Boop works as a shoe clerk, and she can't stand it because she has ambitions of marrying a millionaire. And she's home from work and her feet hurt, and out the window she hears the Iceman singing, 'Are the stars out tonight? I don't know if it's cloudy or bright, 'cause I only have ice for you, Betty.'" And then I had them, and they went for it. And one of the great moments was when we met with CBS and they were looking at the drawings and going over the scripts. One of the executives pointed to a drawing and he said, "I don't know about that." Bill Melendez took out a crayon. He said, "Draw me what you like." It was like he was holding out a cobra because the guy shrank back. And I thought, I'd love to do that as a writer. Give them a typewriter or ink and say, "Well, write me what you like." Enough. That was it. Enough. Anyway, I had done Betty Boop. I'd always loved animation, wildly. And my brother and I were smart because we arranged to be born at the golden age of comic books. We had the first Superman, the first action comics with Batman. We had Plastic Man, who somehow morphed later to become Mr. Fantastic and the Fantastic Four. And by the way, Stan Lee is one of my longtime great dear friends. I've done a lot of work with Stan, and I cherish every moment of it. But I'd always loved animation, and here's what happened. Hasbro and their ad agency, Griffin McCall, decided people writing for animation can't write, because animation was always considered the boneyard of writing. Real writers don't write animation. Why? There's no guild to protect them. The people that do it pay whatever they like, or if they feel like paying, or don't. They do or don't. So real writers aren't doing animation. So they made a talent hunt to find a writer to write G.I. Joe, which was basically just a bunch of little figures in shrink wrap. And on the back will say, "Snake Eyes, he's blind, but he can kick ass." So that was it. So those aren't characters, they're toys. So anyway, at the interview, I said, I happen to know about how children learn to identify with toys, with games, because I was selected by the provost of Carnegie Tech when I was an architect to be a participant in a study by their Department of Management, later the first school to deliver an MBA, about what makes children find that they love certain toys and certain games. How do you seduce them into buying? So I was asked if I would work with this Department of Psychology and the head of the department of the business school and see if we could figure something out. So every other day for 6 weeks, I'd show up at a lab, and the lab was just a room like this, smaller, with a one-way mirror on this side, and I'd sit on the floor, and they'd bring in kids, anywhere from 4 to 9. And they'd bring them in with board games, or they'd bring them in with toys, and they'd observe. Now, there were other people doing this, but the kids liked me better. And they liked me better because I like kids, and kids know if you like them or don't like them. So it was interesting to see what these studies had revealed. And one of the things they revealed was, first, if a kid thinks you like him or her, they will immediately like you. So a doll that talks and says hello and says the child's name is going to be endearing immediately because it acknowledges the presence of the kid. Other things that were learned was it takes time for a child to make a connection to more than one character at a time. Because if there are 3 dolls and they're all equally charming, the kid will sit there. And this is action figures or dolls. And the kid will pick the first doll that he or she might like, but that doesn't mean that's the one they're going to end up with. So to me that said, you cannot have a roll call whereby you introduce all the characters, all the toys in the line in one 22-minute episode and expect that to work. In other words, a pilot of one 22-minute episode is not going to sell G.I. Joe. I suggested a 5-part miniseries. So the kids would have time, and I would have time, to introduce groupings of characters and establish the families, because the family is the touchstone of all storytelling, of all drama. And if you don't know something about someone, you'll invent a family immediately, or you'll place yourself in a family, even if there isn't one. We make surrogate families when there are none. This is how human beings relate. So in order to establish a family, there has to be a big daddy in the good family, in this case, the G.I. Joes, has to be a big daddy in the bad family, Cobra, and so on. And I got additional money for inventing Yo Joe. Oh, that's great. What's Cobra going to say? I say, Cobra! Well, that's good. But Yo Joe? Wow. Hoo, ha, hoo. Anyway, I won. And so I wrote a 5-part miniseries, enormously successful. And thereafter, Hasbro had me writing pilots for different toy lines.